Swamp Thing, Earth really needs you. Arcane is bad for sure. So come on, fight for right. We need you, Swamp Thing. You are amazing. Oh, Swamp Thing.
We got an upgrade. Why? That's probably the question that came across your mind when you saw the title of this video. Why Swamp Thing? And who is Swamp Thing? Well, I won't get into it. His history's a little complicated. That's not the biggest deal though, because this movie does a pretty good job at clearing that up. First of all, this movie is quite an anomaly. It's created by Wes Craven. You know, the guy from this movie and this movie, like some pretty big horror stuff. And I guess back in 1982, he decided it'd be a good idea to make a Swamp Thing movie. A character that wasn't very popular then either. Well then, if Wes Craven is involved, why is this movie so forgettable? I don't think I've ever heard anyone talk about this movie. And it's weird, because Wes Craven made Nightmare on Elm Street. He made more Nightmare on Elm Street. I actually don't know his filmography very well. But this was pre-Nightmare on Elm Street, and almost made him go broke. Let's talk about this. Let's see Wes Craven's start in the sands of mediocrity. Swamp Thing is technically a horror movie, although it doesn't feel like it. And throughout the movie, you can see the seeds where the Nightmare on Elm Street series will eventually grow from. But that's all they are, seeds. It starts with a woman, the main character of the movie named Ellis, who I didn't have to look up. I knew the entire time. I knew Alice's name. Who do you think I am? Anyway, Alice as a character is your main horror movie protagonist. She wasn't hired just for her scream, although her scream isn't even very good, so yeah, she wasn't hired for that at all. She may have not been hired for Scream, instead she was hired for her looks, as she looks exactly like Ripley from the Alien movies. But tidbit, she also plays Catwoman in Batman the Animated Series. That comes later, so at least we know she still gets work. Nevertheless, Alice is a reporter visiting the swamp to see how Dr. Alec Holland is progressing on his miscellaneous science work. There, we meet some popular characters, like evil Elton John, Curly from the Three Stooges, and a discounted Rambo. We also meet the Doctor's wife as Alice finds the science zone, and she's developing some juice, I guess. This juice explodes and creates plant life anywhere. You know exactly where this is going. But anyway, the characters we mentioned before, Elton John, Stooge, and Rambo. Yeah, they make a hostile takeover, and Elton John reveals that he's not Elton John, as he pulls off his face mask to reveal a character we've never met, making the face mask completely redundant and stupid. Because why do you have to pull off a mask? They're trying to do a Mission Impossible movie where Mission Impossible was popular. And it's such a weird choice. During this takeover, the green science juice spills all over the Doctor, and, well, he gets lit on fire. and he tosses himself in the swamp, dead, presumably. And that's Swamp Thing's origin. The Doctor will eventually mutate, but we don't see him for quite a bit, because the villains are plotting, I don't actually know, because it seems they're just being evil until Swamp Thing pops up. Anyway, let's just skip past all the character bits. There's Alice, and she meets this kid who I literally do not remember the name of, and I'm too lazy to look up. I don't know. They have some fun exchanges, but they'll eventually be cut off by Swamp Thing, our main man, as he shows up and he looks he looks interesting.
Look at the top of his head. Look at his lips. Back of his neck looked like a sirloin steak burger. Oh, he tried it.
My biggest problem with this movie is right here, because the Swamp Thing is supposed to be imposing. It just runs into a wall, because Swamp Thing looks goofy, even though it's obviously trying to be very, very serious. It almost takes me out of the movie, because I want Swamp Thing to be so much more imposing than he is. But the characters, mainly the villains, have taken a notice to how strong Swamp Thing is. So after some typical capturing the helpless girl trap, Swamp Thing is now in jail, as the girl was bait and he easily fell for it, and the main villain celebrates upstairs. This shows off two things. First, Bruno the Bulb Minion's drink was spiked with the science juice, and he goes into a transformation into a pig guy. And this is his new name. His new name is Little Bruno. Aww. And now he hates the big bad and needs to help Swamp Thing because now he's a small pig man. Secondly, Swamp Thing learns how to photosynthesize, so that's cool. Anyway, Swamp Thing explains to Little Bruno and the big bad that the science juice enhances your inner self. So Bruno is a small wimp. Poor guy, once again, doesn't deserve this. And Dr. Allen is a big, strong, plant-loving green man. The big bad takes this to heart because he believes that he's also very strong, so he downs the juice. And this creates a legitimately horrifying transformation sequence. I said you could see the seeds from Nightmare on Elm Street, and this is mostly what I meant. His fingers burst open. I'm not showing it here because I'm worried I'd get demonetized or something, so it's gross. But after this transformation, he turns into a furry? He's a big wolf man, so I guess his inner self is a furry the whole time. Okay. And now that he's transformed, I'll actually call him by his name. So the big bad's name is Anton Arcane, and looks like this in the comics. It's pretty weird. Like, why a furry? I'm just... ugh. Anyway, so he grabs a sword off the wall in his room because I guess when you're fighting Swamp Thing, your furry powers don't actually give you furry powers, you're just covered in hair now, so he has to grab a sword. And yeah, he goes to beat up Swamp Thing in his basement, but now they're in like a swamp or something, because I think Swamp Thing escaped, and through the sewers maybe, with Bruno's help. Yeah, that's right. Swamp Thing escapes through the sewers with Bruno's help. Big Bad follows them, now they're fighting in a swamp. This fight between Swamp Thing and Anton is interesting, because it's very reminiscent of King Kong vs. Godzilla movies. No, not those ones. Yeah, there you go, those ones. See the similarities? Maybe goofy, but actually no, it's just goofy. And after Swamp Thing wins, Alice begs him to stay, but Swamp Thing must go, as the swamp now needs him. The Swamp Protector, Swamp Thing. This movie is really weird. A true relic of its time, if you will. A movie created by the most famous horror director, or at least one of them, and a comic book character that no one
one really cares about. You see them around the heavy hitters that we've already covered, Batman and Superman. And Swamp Thing is a D-list hero, just like this is a D-tier movie. No, it's just pretty average. Before we leave, there's two things I want to bring up. First, Swamp Thing, after Swamp Thing wins the fight, he walks away in a shot in the movie that is weirdly epic. This movie is overall shot really bland. I don't really normally cover shot choreography because I'm not smart enough to do it, and I don't know enough about it. But it's just weird seeing overall regular, very basic shots right up until the end when Swamp Thing sticks a sword into the ground and walks away and the camera's staying on the sword. It's just really cool. It just caught me off guard. Secondly, this movie ends on a freeze frame, which is hilarious because I always found freeze frames to be really, really boring and just a lazy way to end movies because like you couldn't even think of an ending. So you're just gonna